Hey folks, welcome back to Indaba Africa. This is Chris. Wow, what is going on here? We've seen in the past, anytime that the ruling African National Congress even remotely perceives a threat from what it calls the right wing, it moves heaven and earth to infiltrate, undermine, and prosecute anyone who threatens the public safety of South Africa on the right-hand side of the spectrum. However, on the other side of the spectrum, we see that they constantly tolerate. We see the exhortations of the leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters basically calling for domestic terrorism against cliques, no consequences. Leaders within the Economic Freedom Fighters at Senegal on the 16th of October exhorting their members to commit arson and burn out farmers in the Free State and Northern Cape. No consequences, nothing from that. We see all sorts of other things. We saw in the past few months demonstrations by Umkonto Sizwe's Military Veterans Association, that's MKMVA, the Spear of the Nation, the former terrorist group that was amalgamated into the South African National Defense Force in 1994. Veterans of that organization are still a potent force in politics in South Africa. And late in 2020, as they toy-toyed marching through the streets, making threats, looting foreign-owned businesses, they present themselves as a true threat. But what's going on now? Following a marathon 7-hour meeting with disgraced former President Jacob Zuma at his palatial mansion built at the taxpayer expense in KwaZulu-Natal, known as Umkonto. This took place on the 11th of February. A marathon 7-hour meeting with MK Veterans Association members, a delegation of 25, wow, including Kebi Mapatso, Des Van Rooyen, and spokesman for the MK Military Veterans Association, Carl Niehaus. They agreed that they would deploy 200 soldiers to maintain a constant presence in Umkonto to protect him being Jacob Zuma. Now, this organization is defying the rule of law. They're wearing military uniforms and they're not soldiers. They're calling themselves soldiers. They chant struggle songs. They carry improvised weapons. Not in Umkonto, we have evidence of that yet, but in previous marches they carried improvised weapons. They've looted foreign-owned businesses. They've threatened to render South Africa ungovernable if Jacob Zuma is arrested. Well, what am I talking about? The former president of South Africa is supposed to appear before the Zondo Commission, a corruption commission in South Africa related to the phenomenon of state capture under his administration. He has defiantly ignored the Zondo Commission for some time, but he's now been ordered to go, and he has no intention of going. So the Veterans Association has deployed its members to keep the police from arresting him. This does not bode well for South Africa's security. So before we talk about what's been said, let's mention who's told us about it, and that's Carl Niehaus. Carl Niehaus is a 61-year-old South African who was convicted of treason under the apartheid government for plotting terrorism and was sentenced to 15 years in prison for his crimes. Now, he's a former African National Congress spokesman and also a spokesman for now deceased President Nelson Mandela. As I mentioned, he was convicted of treason during the apartheid government. And he is not exactly a savory character. He's quite unsavory, to say the least. He stepped down from his position as spokesman of the African National Congress in 2009 after he admitted to financial chicanery, including feigning the death of his mother in order to escape a 4.3 million rand debt which he owed to his landlord. What kind of slippery character is Carl Niehaus? Wow. He also falsely claimed to hold a master's degree and a doctorate from Utrecht, neither of which he holds. So stolen valor there in some respect. He went into the wilderness in 2009. However, in 2017, he reemerged as a spokesperson for the MK Military Veterans Association, which is the group we're talking about here. So let's cover some of the quotes that came out of this. The meeting that took place on Thursday, marathon 7-hour meeting with 25 members, including the President of the Association, Des Van Rooyen, and Carl Niehaus, the spokesperson, among the 25. They agreed to send 200 soldiers, as they call them. They're not soldiers. They're civilians. They're not soldiers. And this is the crux of the problem. And we are going to see what happens at Umkonto now going forward. But Carl Niehaus, the wonderful gentleman, I just shared a little bit of his biography with you. He said that in the meeting, Jacob Zuma reiterated that he will definitely not go to the commission. Well, There should be a warrant issued for his arrest forthwith. Police should go there and arrest him. They never should have allowed these so-called soldiers, these veterans, to show up there. Now, this is a decision that the MK Military Veterans Association fully supports, according to Carl Niehaus. Jacob Zuma defying the rule of law. Niehaus added the military veterans were fundamentally opposed to any warrant of arrest for him to be arrested. Well, of course they are. They are stalwart Jacob Zuma supporters and Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma supporters. Niehaus also had this to say: we'll do everything within our means to protect him and prevent him from being arrested. A platoon of MK Military Veterans Association soldiers were in Nkandla when we arrived, and they formed a guard of honor. The intention is for them to stay there, and from time to time to change platoons, but there will be a constant presence to protect President Zuma. MK vets headed to Nkandla to do what is necessary to prevent Zuma's arrest. Wow. Now, Niehaus pointed out that Zuma is not paying for this deployment. Well, not a surprise. Jacob Zuma doesn't pay for anything. He didn't pay for his mansion. He illicitly stole money from the government. He didn't pay for anything. And apparently the bribes that he got from Sheikh Shabir, his financial agent, who took the bribes on his behalf from foreign arms sales companies. Yeah. So Jacob Zuma doesn't pay for anything. So not surprising he won't be paying for this deployment. Wow. The veterans will do their level best to protect him. And as I said, as of 2 p.m. South Africa time on Sunday, Valentine's Day, 200 of them were supposed to be there to set up a base outside his palatial mansion. Niehaus also had this to say: we don't want and are not in favor of any violence, so obviously everyone is wanting for this not to go to that route of arrest. So basically they're threatening violence if the police arrest Jacob Zuma. They don't want violence, which means piss off, footsack, don't arrest this former president. It's not just a matter of supporting President Zuma. We want to make it 100% clear that we are with him and we will do our level best to protect him and defy the rule of law, clearly. We sincerely hope that reason will prevail and he will not be arrested. I don't think anyone should underestimate the commitment of MKMVA membership to President Zuma. Niehaus said Zuma's arrest would not be good for the country and would be a disaster for the ANC. Well, it'll be great for the country if this criminal is arrested for any of the multiple crimes he's committed over the years, including when he's in office. It would be good for the country to set an example that corruption is not tolerable. So Carl Niehaus doesn't know what he's talking about. He can't identify reality if it smacked him in the face. Would it be a disaster for the ANC? Yeah, it's already a disaster for the ANC that Jacob Zuma was president in the first place and his pervasive corruption and the lost decade in South Africa. Now, here's the threat from Carl Niehaus. It will definitely cause instability in the country, and I don't think we need that. So that's a threat. The MK Military Veterans Association has deployed its soldiers to Nkandla to interfere with the administration of justice in the potential arrest of former President Jacob Zuma. As I've said, they have gone in March previously, just late in 2020, carrying improvised weapons, clubs, sticks, beat and looted foreign-owned businesses. They have threatened to make the country ungovernable. If the ANC can spend so much in the way of resources hunting down the Boeremag, which was no threat to the country's security, perhaps to a few political leaders it may have been a threat, but not to the system itself, they put all the effort into that. They could certainly put some effort into dealing with this group. So at what point does the MK Military Veterans Association become deemed a domestic terrorist organization or an illegitimate illegal militia? If they're calling themselves soldiers, if they're wearing uniforms, if they're using terminology like deploy, and they intend to abrogate the rule of law, ignore the rule of law, and circumvent the rule of law, prevent it from being enforced, then at what point are they an illegal group? At what point do they make themselves a target of arrest? Is the MK Military Veterans Association a domestic terrorist organization? Is it an illegal militia? You decide. Whatever the case is, folks, the rule of law is only for minorities who will be prosecuted for even the slightest grievance or offense, while as those who are cadres or supporters of the cadres get away with, genuinely, with murder. It's unbelievable what happens in South Africa. Hey, folks, if you're not a subscriber, why not become one? Smash the button, toggle the icon to get notified updates, and give us a like on the video. Thanks a lot, and hang in there, South Africa. Crazy times indeed. MK.